Should have seen that away that I questioned him, man. I weren't shocked that all of his brethren left him.
Yo, what's going on, people? It's your boy Poncho, back at you again with another video. Now, this next story that we're about to get into is about Emmanuel Lukenga and how he was stabbed to death over a gang rivalry between two areas in Coventry. It's believed that there was a running feud between two groups of youths, one from the Candy area above Torrington Avenue and one from the Tile area below Torrington Avenue. And as you can see on Google Maps here, they're literally not even that far apart. You can literally walk from one place to another within 10 to 15 minutes. So it just goes to show you how close these two areas are. You know, Coventry is not a big place and it's going to be quite easy to see people that you don't like. And it is like that for a lot of places around the UK, including London. It's not very far apart where two areas might have problems with each other. Like, for example, in a lot of other countries, like America as well, if there's two gangs that don't like each other, they're not necessarily a 10-minute walk, you know? It might take you 30 minutes to drive to an area where two rivals might not necessarily like each other. Now, that's not the case for everywhere, of course. Each individual place has its each individual rivalries. And, you know, there might be a place in America where it might be 10 minutes apart. But around the UK, 9 times out of 10, when people have issues with each other, they're literally a 5 to 10 minute walk away from each other. And I'm unsure at this current time what their feud was over. There's no information that's currently out there. Emmanuel Lukenga was a father of a young child, and he had another one on the way. And he and his friends were from the Tile Hill area. It's been reported that he, along with friends, was spotted in the Candy area, and rivals took exception to this. And on the 12th of June 2019, on a stolen motorbike, Kyle Kinchin, and the pillion passenger, Enroy Ruddock, carrying a petrol can, set off along with Matthew Brankin and Bradley Richardson in a Berlingo van to seek retribution. They found a red Astra Manny had been driving in Melrose Way and set it alight. Minutes later, the van and motorbike were still driving around Tile Hill when they spotted two of Manny's friends who ran into a local convenience store on Frisbee Road. CCTV from the shop showed Richardson, the passenger in the Berlingo, carrying a large axe and Ruddock holding something behind his back. Unable to attack the two in the shop, they returned to their vehicles and drove off. The van and bike had caught up with Manny and his friends again as they tried to escape down an alleyway between Tile Hill Lane and Gravel Hill. The Berlingo was seen driving down the alleyway, damaging the van and coming to a stop where passengers Ruddock and Richardson gave chase on foot. Manny and his friends fled into gardens as frightened residents looked on. Richardson axed down a gate, and seconds later Ruddock caught up with Manny in Franklin Grove as he tried to climb a fence and stabbed him once, and he bled to death after suffering a single blow to the area of his bottom, which severed a vital artery in the perineum. And after paramedics and police had showed up, they desperately tried to save him, but unfortunately he had died at the scene. And as you seen at the start of the video, later on that same day, the Snapchat video that you had seen was shared online by Ruddock with his face covered by an emoji, and there, as you seen, he was bragging how he had stabbed Manny after his friends had left him. Police had said that they had gathered CCTV from the area and had tracked the two groups back hours earlier in the day to identify everyone that was involved. Detective Chief Inspector Scott Griffiths of West Midlands Police from the Homicide Unit explained, Ruddock was wearing a motorbike helmet ahead of Manny's murder, so we tracked back earlier on in the day where he had met Kinchin, who had given him the helmet. Using witness statements, we were able to piece all their movements together both before and after the attack. Although they had tried to cover their tracks, we found the bike. A petrol canister used to torch the Astra and clothing had all been burnt. Significantly, we found a large Rambo-style knife discarded in a brook, which matched the damage caused to Manny's clothing. It was clear from the outset that the three convicted were intent on causing serious harm to Manny and his friends that day. And after everyone involved was arrested, they had all pleaded not guilty to the murder. At an earlier court date before the trial, Ruddock, Richardson, Rankin, and Kinchin had pleaded guilty to arson. At the 6-week trial that had taken place at Warwick Crown Court, it was heard that Ruddock, who had given the deadly blow, had told the jury that he'd been handed the knife by a co-defendant and stabbed Emmanuel to his bottom with it because he had feared for his own life at the time. Giving evidence in response to questions from his barrister Christopher Millington QC, Ruddock said he was aware of the trouble between his friends of the Canley and the other group from Tile Hill, although he said he was not involved in that. He had said that in May there'd been an incident where 4 of the Tile Hill group brandished weapons as they approached some of Ruddock's friends, with Emmanuel holding up a black pistol. Asked about the events on June 12, 2019, Ruddock said that he heard Tile Hill was driving around Canley in a red Vauxhall Astra, so he returned to Canley and met up with 3 others before they set off to Tile Hill and the Berlingo and on the Triumph. Mr. Millington asked what the purpose was, and Ruddock had replied to set the red Vauxhall on fire to stop them going round in it. They found it in Melrose Way, and Ruddock said, the jerry can was passed to me from the driver's side of the Belingo, and I walked down to the close and set fire to it. Of why he was the one to do so, he said convenience, because I was on the back of the motorbike, so it was easier for me to get on and off. We went back to Canley, but we returned to Tower Hill to see the commotion. There were a few people outside, and some woman screaming her head off. The court is then told about how he saw two of his rivals enter a convenience store, but he said at that time he denied having the knife on him, and he said that he did not see Richardson, who had got out of the Belingo, was holding an axe behind him outside of the shop. After leaving, he then says he saw Emmanuel in a group of lads, and the van followed them along the pathway towards Franklin Grove, while he said him and Kinchin headed along a parallel pathway in the Triumph. And he claimed at one stage as they rode past, Emmanuel swung out at him with something. Mr. Millington asked, did you see whether or not Manny was carrying any weapon? And Ruddock had replied, at that time yes, it looked like a knife. I made a gesture with my middle finger. He said the bike then stopped, got off, insisting he had not had any weapon on him up until that point. Asked how then he had come to have a knife, and he said, I was passed it by the passenger in the Belingo, Mr. Richardson. I took it for my own safety. He says he intended to use it to intimidate the other group, and was asked, did you intend to use that knife to injure anyone? And he replied, definitely not. Asked what he had in mind, he claimed to speak to them to try and get a resolution to all the rubbish that was going on. Ruddock said that he was with Richardson, who had the axe, and they could see Emmanuel and others go over a fence into the back garden, so he booted the gate down to follow them. He goes on to say, I seen Emmanuel with about 6 or 7 people behind him, 3 or 4 had weapons, knives and a hammer. The boys behind Emmanuel all ran off and left him. They jumped over the fence. There was just Emmanuel. He put his hand down his trousers, his left hand. I saw something black. It could have been a gun, it could have been a knife. I ran at him and shoulder charged him, and he went down to his hands and knees. I was standing over him. He went to get back up. I thought he was doing something with a weapon. I stabbed him in the lower region, in his bum. Asked whether he had stabbed him deliberately, he said yes, I was scared for my life. I could have ran away, but I thought he wanted to chase me, and the tables would be turned. Asked how he felt when he heard that Emmanuel had died, he said distraught. Before closing the prosecution's case, Mr. Curtis prosecuting showed the jury video clips and pictures taken with a phone, which showed Emmanuel brandishing a revolver in different locations, including in a car outside a shop which had featured in the trial. I'm pretty sure that's the shop where the 2 people had run into. Mr. Curtis pointed out that the realistic looking gun had been identified by a firearms expert as a Dan Wesson CO2 powered action sports game gun, and there was a further picture of Manny with what appeared to be a semi-automatic pistol. And after the trial had finished, today 31st of January 2020, Enroy Ruddock, aged 19, from Melbourne Road, was found guilty of murder and sentenced to a minimum of 21 years. Bradley Richardson, aged 23, from Prior Derham Walk, was found guilty of murder and was sentenced to a minimum of 22 years. Matthew Brankin, aged 19, from Thimbler Road, was found guilty of murder and sentenced to a minimum of 19 years. Kyle Kinchin, aged 19, from John Ruse Avenue, was found not guilty of murder. Riley Madden, aged 19, from Gerard Avenue, was found guilty of handling stolen goods and was handed a community order including 100 hours of unpaid work, and a rehabilitation activity was required. And all 4 who pleaded guilty to the arson offences, that being Ruddock, Richardson, Brankin and Kinchin, they all received a custodial sentence of 27 months to be served concurrently with the sentences they had been handed. And I just want to take this time out just to say rest in peace to Manny, and my thoughts and condolences are with his friends and family at this current time. Now, there's a few things that I find quite interesting in this case. One of them being the main guy, Ruddock, who had actually stabbed Manny, didn't even get the longest jail time. Like, he wasn't even the longest time in jail. And another thing, if you didn't mean to go out of your way and stab Manny as well, I'm not one to jump the gun because I don't know in detail as to what happened, whether Manny had tried to stab him or not. And again, we'll never find out because he sadly passed away. But if you didn't mean to do it on purpose, then why would you go on Snapchat after bragging about that you've just basically scored a point or that you basically just killed someone if you didn't mean to do it? Like, it doesn't really make sense. Why would you brag about that? So you clearly had the intention that you was going to do something, because like you've seen in the CCTV footage, they hunted him down like a pack of animals. Like, you literally seen it on the CCTV footage. So if you're trying to claim self-defense, but sorry, to me, that doesn't look like self-defense. And again, there was a feud in rivalry, so why would you just go there to talk? It doesn't really make sense. And as well, if they were flashing their guns and supposedly flashing their weapons, you would want to retaliate for that. And it shows your intentions by setting the car on fire and then again hunting them down like a pack of animals. So to me, it doesn't really seem like self-defense. I just don't really believe it, to be honest. What do you guys think of this situation? Do you think it was self-defense? And on this case in general, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Give the video a little like, and if you want the latest drill, street and music news out of the UK, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. It's been your boy Poncho, and I'm out.